Hi guys, welcome back. It's LSP. It's currently the 26th of July 2021. Before I start, as I've mentioned in the chat, I've not been I've not been well. I've had a terrible migraine over the last sort of 2-3 days, so I'm not going to be with it that much. But I want to kind of get my mind sort of working again, my brain working again. So with that said, I'm going to be talking quite slow, quite low. The screen is dimmed as much as I can make it and still be visible because the light's hurting my eyes a bit. I'm all right, but I'm just on the tail end of it, so I need to talk quite low. So if the audio is not that great, I apologize. So I'm going to go straight into the analysis, Bitcoin and CHSB. What I'll do the analysis up to the point where we are now with everything marked up, and then I'm going to reset the charts and we'll start fresh because we've obviously had a very explosive impulse. So we need to kind of refresh and sort of check things out. And I'm going to remind you of a few things, obviously, that we or that I made reference to, and then we'll take it from there. The previous video that I did, I tried really hard to just, I kept saying, make a note of this, put it somewhere safe, make a note of that, put it somewhere safe. We'll revisit it at a later time, so on and so on. And it may seem cryptic, and I apologize for that. Please understand, it's very hard for me. I've said this before, to express myself after all of these years with so much experience in a way that people just get it. It's hard. It's very difficult to to just explain it all. And people say, "Oh yeah, I understand that." So I have to just point things out, and do my best to try to sort of make a point, and then once that point's been made, we revisit it, and then once we revisit it, we can learn from that. So I was saying this level up here. Now, before I say anything else, I made a reference to this level here, okay, the 37,000. And I did it ages ago, and I tried to find it in the Discord chat. You guys know, obviously, at this point, I like to do screenshots way before they happen. And then weeks later, or sometimes up to a month and a half later, I'll search back for it and I'll put a little, finger pointing up to the, to the screenshot. But I couldn't find it. And I remember it specifically because when I made a reference to this, it was so far away from this at the time. I believe it was like down here somewhere, and somebody said, oh, this is miles away, Bitcoin's going, down. What's the point of making a reference here? And I said, I can't remember what I said at the time, but it was something to the effect of, this level is very important. Yeah. And I know it was that level because there's nothing else on the chart. It has to have been this one. And I went back and I was trying to find it, and I couldn't find it. So I know it's this one. It's 37,000. Okay. So the 37,000 obviously has been traded to. Now, before we get to this, there's obviously this that I was discussing, and price came up to this, and I said, if price starts to come towards this level, I didn't say if, I said when price starts to come towards this level, it will accelerate into this and this. Okay, this is super important. Okay, for anybody that wants to understand liquidity, at least the way that I teach it, the way that I understand it, the way that I talk about it. Okay. This is really important, okay, what I'm going to go through now, okay? So please, if you want to understand it or try to understand it, try and, really try to pay attention. I was saying, if price or when price comes close to this level and this level, okay, it's going to accelerate into that level, okay? Now, what does that mean? It means two things, okay? First of all, when price accelerates into a level, okay, it's reaching for liquidity. Okay, if price just kind of grinds like it's doing here, look at, like, notice this price delivery here, or this price action here, okay, or just price, whichever term you want to use. We'll just call it price. Notice price here on these candles here, okay. This is the 4-hour chart. It's just kind of up and down, up and down, up and down. Some red candles, some green candles, some tails. It's just kind of normal price action, right? But these really stand out. So we've got this just normal price behavior, and then we've got this normal price behavior, and then we've got these big candles, these explosive candles, right? These really stand out. All right. Now price is reaching when it does this. It's reaching for liquidity when it explodes like this. When it's doing this, it's not. Okay, it's just facilitating trade. It's just going through its normal ebb and flow. Buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, bid, ask, you know, and it's just kind of grinding through its normal, you know, process. But when it starts to do this, it's accelerating, it's reaching for liquidity. It's reaching for liquidity, orders, whichever which way you want to look at it. It's like if you want to look at it from a lot of different ways, so you understand the term liquidity, you can look at it as it's reaching for a product, it's reaching for orders, it's reaching for liquidity, it's reaching for, you know, sweets, it's reaching for, you know, I mean, just pick one. It really doesn't matter. It's reaching for what it needs, okay? And once it finds it, it stops. Again, very important, right? Very important. It stops. Once it finds it, I've just given you gold, right? And I'm not going to go into it anymore. Once price finds what it's looking for, it stops, all right? So remember that. So price gets here and it accelerates and it reaches for liquidity, okay? And it stops just there, yeah? You can see it. There's a little bit of a tail just there. Now, if we drop down to a lower time frame, maybe let's just do it. Why not? Let me just see what the price was here. 35,142, and then top end sort of 35.5. So 35.12, 35.55, and you can see it just there on that tail. It accelerates and then it stopped just there. Okay, now it doesn't seem like a big deal, all right, but this is really important when you're trying to understand why price stopped here and what happened here when price picked up just here. There's a lot going on. You know, price drops, reaches for liquidity, starts to grind sideways, and it reverses. This is called a negation, okay? And when price negates like this is where somebody asked me if this was a bull trap, and I was saying if it gets back above 32,000 to 33,000 and holds, yeah, then we're likely to see higher prices. And then obviously this was going to be the draw on price, but I didn't go into that because it was in the chat. But this, again, it's very important because there's a lot of stair-stepping into and mapping into where we end up here, right? So it's, some people call them reversals, but there's a lot going on in a reversal. It's not just a reversal, it's a negation. So it drops, it negates, it comes back up, it holds, and then it pops just there. This is the dead giveaway right there. So we've got the negation, it holds, okay, 32,000 give or take, then it pops, then it starts to hold again. This is just beautiful. Once this starts to happen, and I'll just give you a tip here about trading, okay? Because as a trader, this is one of my favorite setups, but I prefer to short this. You know, I'm predominantly a shorter. 87% of the time I'm shorting, which it might even be more now, or at least it has been this year. But when you see negation like this, okay, and then you get confirmation that it's holding, and then you get a secondary confirmation, then a hold again, while you have liquidity resting above you, right? It's almost, and I'm going to be very careful how I say this, it's almost, and it's not trade advice, but it's almost 100% that price is going to reach for this liquidity. Yeah, this is, I mean, I dare I say I have almost never lost on a trade like this. And that's a big statement to make, but I've almost never lost on a trade like this. But it takes a lot. You've got to be so patient to wait for these types of trades. But price has got nowhere else to go, effectively, and this is why you get that acceleration, because it needs to pair the pickup, okay, the accumulation, the buys. It needs to pair them here, and the only available liquidity is above here and here, and this is why it accelerates, stops, and then it rips. And where does it rip to? Goes all the way to the imbalance, goes straight through that imbalance, which again is very important. It tells us a lot, clears up another imbalance, and then it stops up here. Let me go over to the daily to see where it actually stopped. Yeah, no surprise really. There we go. Right there. And it's actually, if we encompass in its top body, just there. And you can see where it stopped. Perfect. Yeah. And I'm sure at this point now, guys, you're starting to see, you know, as price, you know, came up, and you saw this on the 4-hour, you can see it here. Look, price comes up and it just taps the tail just there as it comes up, just there. Taps the tail, starts to move lower, comes up, hits this, stabilizes a little bit just here, and then it starts to accelerate, capitulates at the top here, hits this. This is terminus effectively. This is it's called objective fulfillment. So at this point, what we're going to do now, we're going to get rid of everything. We're going to go over to the weekly chart. We're going to zoom in just a little bit. We're going to kind of get a feel for what's going on. There is some remaining liquidity below, but we're not really going to discuss that at the minute. What I am going to do, because the video is going to get really long if I don't speed this up a little bit, what I'm going to do for now, I'm going to make a note of some levels, guys. Okay, and I'm going to discuss them very briefly, and then I'll go into them in a bit more detail in a separate video as and when they're relevant. But this should effectively be the next draw on price when we finally get there, which is roughly around about 48.80 or 48,800. But let's just go down to the daily for now. You can see it's up here, and it coincides nicely actually with the liquidity, which is just up here. And let's start changing things up, use some lighter colors. There's nothing in terms of imbalance on the way up. It probably is on the 4-hour, but for now there is some liquidity build up just above here, but because it's capitulated and it took out what it needed to do on the 4-hour chart. So let me just backtrack a second. Because price accelerated after dropping, picking up liquidity or picking up a bunch of buy orders or buys, okay, and it started to go from there, and it reverses and it starts to go and accelerates, does whatever it needs to do on the 4-hour, because remember, we're working off 4-hour liquidity pools. We saw them, right? We marked them all, and it went straight through everything, all the way through the 35s, the 37s, and it ripped and it went almost to 40,000 almost, okay, and then it stopped. So we're working off 4-hour liquidity pools. Now that's all been cleaned out, and it capitulated on the 4-hour, which means it dried out. Yeah, we know it dried out because it hit that daily liquidity pool up here, and it started to ease off. So we're going to make a note of the daily liquidity pool as we did before. Just about right. Okay. And it tapped it just nicely, so there is remaining liquidity here. All right. So there is remaining liquidity here, but like I said, because we're working off those 4-hour liquidity pools, it's done its job, and now we need to take a step back, let Bitcoin just relax, do its thing. There is liquidity above here, but we need to see what Bitcoin's going to be doing now before thinking about going forward on a longer term basis, sort of the next 3 to 6 months, going into the remainder of the year. Now there is an imbalance left behind. I'm gonna make a note of this, but it's gonna start to get a little bit cluttered, and just to make this different, we're gonna mark dailies as yellow, and we'll just make this green, you know, as a 4-hour, so we know it's different. But if we start to pull into this, this is kind of the line in the sand. I wouldn't really expect Bitcoin to go past 34, 35 at this point, but this is very good. There is a small imbalance just here, just where I've made a note of that weekly level, but that's a ways away. And I am expecting price to get to this at some point this year. Okay, so that's Bitcoin. I'm going to stop now on Bitcoin because there's a lot going on, and I could keep talking and talking. But this is a good reversal, and it does bode well for the for the rest of the the broader market. And I'm liking what I'm seeing. So everything's good. Everything's good. So going over to CHSB, again, I made a reference to, I'll just show you on the 4 hour, and I'll just clear this up as well. I've said this before, but I'll just kind of clear this up and I'll make it really simple. We've got 2 accounts. I've said this before, but I'll explain what we do with these 2 accounts. The one account, we basically just, everything goes into that one account. We just basically add and add and add and add and add. Okay, we don't care about the price. We don't, we're not bothered. It's just all add. Yeah. The whole point of adding to that account is to just accumulate as much as we possibly can of CHSB to take advantage of whatever is going to be available in terms of utility later, as the years go by. For example, the IFO, right? The other account, I use to capitalize. I do add to the account, but I use, the opportunities when I see them to add to the position. But I trade it as well, very sparingly. Yeah, and I have to be really clear when I say that. I trade it very sparingly. I hardly ever sell my CHSB coins and buy them back. But when I know that there's an opportunity to do that, I'll do it. And I sold and I rebought here. Okay, excuse me, because for me it was obvious that price was going to go down here. I made a reference to this way before it happened, guys. You know this. Obviously, I'm not going to go into it. And I bought them back as price was coming into this level, just before it hit this level. And then obviously, I've been sat in it ever since. So effectively, I've got more now than I did, prior to selling. So I've effectively sold, added back, made the profit, and I've got more CHSB tokens. All right. So we've had a really nice response from this. This is beautiful. Absolutely. I mean, I get really excited when I see stuff like this because it's just such amazing price action, price delivery, however you want to, sort of term it. This is still open, so I do expect price to go up there. Yeah, I was talking to Ro today. She made a reference to the 66 level. Obviously, I posted this in the chat ages ago, and I made a reference to the chart again. And again, just to clear it up, when I post charts in the chat, guys, just make a note of the levels. And it's about learning. It's not about me trying to be clever. Make a note. If I post a screenshot, just save it somewhere on your phone, or maybe if you just want to, make just pencil the number somewhere. Keep a note of it, and as price starts to, pair it with your analysis. Do it that way. If you compare it with your analysis and you see confirmation that price is indeed going towards that level, then expect it to hit that level, because it's an open liquidity pool or it's an imbalance and price has to trade to it. There's no other way for me to explain it. There is somebody that mentioned about the 20 level down here. Okay, there is open liquidity down here. It is unlikely it's going to get traded to. Okay, if everything carried on the way it was going with Bitcoin, and I made a reference to the 19,567 level, I believe it was. If Bitcoin continued to go lower and it started to accelerate, that's exactly where price would have gone to. But that's not what we've seen. But if it did do that, then CHSB probably would have seen 20, but we've not seen that. We've seen a reversal, and because I'm I never anticipate. I adjust, and I'm a confirmation trader. So for me, I've said this before, and I tried to explain this in the smart talk, one of the smart talks. When you're a confirmation trader, you can't get it wrong effectively, because you're always waiting for confirmation. You can still lose. It's not what I mean, but your analysis is never wrong because you're always waiting for confirmation. If that kind of makes sense. So going forward, not really sure what this is. Probably just something we were talking about prior. I'm gonna leave this. In fact, I'm not going to change the chart on CHSB. There's not really much to discuss, in terms of yeah, there's not really much to discuss in terms of analysis and what we're seeing, relative to Bitcoin. Bitcoin accelerated very, very quickly to reach for liquidity. Whereas CHSB hasn't done any of that. You can see this is very controlled on CHSB, and we've been saying this for a very, very long time. Everybody's been saying this. This has been the running theme. As CHSB came down the first time, we were saying, and I made this very clear, not just myself, Yeah, there's many people have said this in the chat, experienced people. Ben said this, I said this, you know, I can't remember the names in the chat, forgive me, but I know 4 or 5 other people mentioned this as well. As CHSB was coming down, going lower, going lower, going lower, it was being accumulated. It wasn't going down because it was being sold, it was going down. I know people look at the numbers and they go to hit, you know, Etherscan, and they see that, you know, people are transferring CHSB to something else, or that they're selling their CHSB, or they're moving out of their, you know, whatever. Don't worry about that. It's being accumulated. Yeah, just trust me on this one. It's being accumulated. It's being accumulated, and it's being accumulated massively. Okay, and I have confirmation of this. I can prove this. I was saying that CHSB was being accumulated here. I was saying it was being accumulated here, and then as it started to drop aggressively, I was saying it was being accumulated, and then it started to go up, and I was saying it's being accumulated, and then as it started to come down again, it was being accumulated aggressively. And what's happened? If you notice, somebody, I can't remember who it was, but people started to pay attention to the available supply, and it started to go down and down and down. Then it went below 200 million, and it started to accelerate, right? How would I possibly know that? Yeah. Again, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm just trying to explain. This is not just listen to me. Do the math. It's there. If you pay attention to what you're seeing on the chart, you can see that CHSB, Bitcoin, and all of these other cryptocurrencies were being accumulated, right, while price was going lower. This is why I have had so many arguments with people, and I'm sorry for the rant, but I've had so many arguments with people over the last sort of 2 months, I'd say. Very heated debates, actually. People arguing with me about it's being sold, everything's selling, everything's doom and gloom, and I'm like, look, man, you know, price is being accumulated, and I've sat down with people and I've explained it, and I've actually gone through in great detail, you know, candle by candle by candle, and I've explained the math. And I know I don't do that with you guys, but I've explained it, you know, and I think I've said this before, but I've proved myself. So this is more about, you know, when myself, Ben, we talk in the, you know, in the smart talks, and when, you know, the community as a whole, we're trying to keep, you know, the FOMO, sorry, not the FOMO, the FUD out of the door, and just trying to focus on building the community, you know, and keeping everybody holding on to their CHSB, because I know somebody who sold a lot of CHSB, and he's kicking himself right now. So, you know, it's a solid coin. It's not going anywhere, you know, and this is, people miss these opportunities, you know, and they end up selling and losing money. And this rant is more of a empathetic, heartfelt, I guess a little bit of an annoying, you know, I'm trying to stop people from losing money effectively and holding on to an opportunity, right, so they don't lose out. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? So rant over. In terms of Swissborg going forward, as I said, there's not really much to discuss. We did have, you see, this is an interesting candle actually today. I'm gonna have to kind of keep it there because this tail's messing everything up. But this is an interesting candle here. We obviously had a lot of back and forth, but you see it stopped just shy, or just tapped the high just here. There is some liquidity over here, but there's not much. We need to get here basically into the sort of above 70 to 75, which I do believe it's going to get to. But the high of this daily candle is 69, so that's the second time it's gone there. Prior to that it was 68, and then a 67. That's interesting actually. Let me just check something, guys, 1 minute. We had a high of 67. What was this high over here? 66. Okay, so it would have been, yeah, so I had a high of 72. Sorry, I'm just doing some quick calculations, 1 second. 67, and then the high of today was 67. Okay, so I do believe that we're going to hit mid 70s, but this bodes very, very well. And as I was saying, We had a little bit of acceleration as it started, so this is a nice impulse, and it started to grind higher. But all in all, very healthy for Swissborg, and I'm expecting some continuation. This is a really nice, I guess people call it a double bottom, but it's effectively picked up off this 4-hour liquidity pool. Very strong, really nice reaction away from that. And not aggressive enough, and it didn't capitulate, so there's not really much of an imbalance left. So we're probably going to see a little bit of sideways action and then a continuation higher, as opposed to Bitcoin, which has something to fall back into, okay, even as low as 35,000 or so before it starts to continue higher. Okay, so just bear that in mind. All right. So with all of that said, guys, I do apologize for the back and forth. You know, my head's not really with it at the minute. You know, and I hope I didn't say anything that's offended anybody. And as always, I hope nobody takes anything that I say the wrong way. I hope the analysis has been welcomed, and I hope I've said some things that have helped, you know, people to understand some of the things that I talk about. And as always, I'm always available in the chat. If you do ask a question in the, you know, in the Discord chat, please remember to tag me, because you know sometimes people just put LSP and I miss it, you know. So and when I scroll through, you know, there's so many messages sometimes. I don't want to miss any questions that are directed at me. So make sure that you tag me so I see it, because I get the notification on my phone. And then obviously we have the Smart Talk this Thursday, 6:30 GMT time, and that's it. I think that's everything. So as always, I hope everybody's well. I'll probably be resting now for the remainder of the evening, so if anybody does message me, I'll see it in the morning. So with that said, take care everybody, have a great evening, and I'll speak to you soon.